On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors take down the Boston Celtics in convincing fashion, and we're eating it all up. Num, 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 delicious.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, January the 16th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I'm covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram. You can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Great place to come talk ball and make fun of the Boston Celtics whenever they lose to the 10-31 Toronto Raptors. Very good stuff. So please join us in our little listener community there over on the Discord. You can also support me by going to support the newsletter, the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. You have the QR code on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, or you can go to the link in the description of the podcast to go and sign up there. You get it right to your inbox every single day for the low price of On the House. It's free. You get original writing from me 5 days a week. You get Katie Heindel with national perspective on the NBA 4 times a week. You get Michael Shearer from Basketball Poetry every Thursday. That's today. Josh Lloyd fantasy tips to win your league. All for no dollars. Zero. You don't have to pay a thing. It's a wonderful thing. Please go support. We are nearing 1,400 subs. It's pretty crazy. You guys are the best. Thank you for subscribing. All right. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here talking about your fighting Toronto Raptors picking up their second straight victory, taking down the Boston Celtics at home 110-97 in perhaps... maybe not even, it might not even be arguable, the most satisfying win of the season for the Raptors. Beating the Celtics rules. Doing it just 2 weeks after losing it by 54 points on New Year's Eve also rules. It's a great day to sit here and bask in the glow of the Boston Celtics being a shambolic fraud franchise that, I'm not a believer in titles having asterisks unless the Boston Celtics win one. And boy, oh boy, are they going to repeat? Not looking likely, baby. We're going to get into RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick looking awesome in this game. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the as we always do. But let's just start off with what went into this game for the Raptors, which was a lot of really good stuff and a lot of stuff that I think was very recognizable from an earlier version of the Raptors that played spunky, competitive, sprightly basketball for the first month and a half of the season until things went down the tubes with a little winter swoon between, the early part of December and say last week. I think things really began to turn around in that game against the Knicks. Yeah, they fell apart in the fourth quarter, but the first 3 quarters were very, very interesting and fun. And the first half was as good as a defensive performance as the Raptors have had in a very long time. They won up the defense, I think, in this one against the Celtics. And look, you might look at it and say, oh, the Celtics didn't play very well. Oh, the Celtics didn't have it. That's very much true. A lot of the guys on the Celtics did not really bring it in this one. I think Kristaps Porzingis was maybe the only guy who played what I would call, quote unquote, a good game of their starters. Peyton Pritchard did his really annoying Randall from recess thing off the bench. Good for him, I guess. The rat, Peyton Pritchard, 20 points leading the team. But yeah, overall, the Celtics did not have it. They talked about it after the game. They're kind of going through some stuff right now. And that's, you can only play the Celtics when you end up playing them. And the Raptors took advantage. This was not a game that the Celtics just handed the Raptors either. The Raptors very much had agency, and the Celtics looking terrible in this basketball game. I thought the defense was as connected as we've seen it. I talked about that Knicks game last week. This very much felt like a sort of improvement even upon that. Davion Mitchell in the starting 5 in place of Emmanuel Quickly. You get a little bit more defensive juice there. I thought Scottie Barnes was frankly ridiculous defensively in this game. Just kind of everywhere, contesting looks at the rim, defending on the wing. I thought he did a really good job on Jason Tatum. Like, he's just, I continue to say it, continues to go kind of unremarked upon because no one watches the Raptors and they're 10-31. And obviously no one's really going to be in award talk by season's end. But if Scottie Barnes were playing on a slightly better team, he'd be getting all defense buzz. He's been that good. He's been that impactful. And he has been a delight to watch on the defensive end so far this year. All of the sort of issues of the past, the overzealousness as a wing defender, not trusting his length, getting too up into guys' shirts, allowing blow-bys that maybe he shouldn't be allowing. Those aren't really a thing anymore. He's been so much better and cleaner as a wing defender. He's been obviously incredible as a help guy around the rim. He blows up stuff all over the place. He cleans up messes. He has been sublime defensively. It's been, I think, the biggest leap he's taken in any department. The mid-range, which we'll get to in a sec, kind of the close second there. But Scottie as a defender has really kind of put it all together this year, and it's been awesome to see. And it bodes very well for the defenses the Raptors may or may not be able to build going into the future. To the offensive side with Scottie Barnes as well. We should probably talk about this. He only had 18 points in this game. He was 18, 3 and 9, 1 and 2 as his line. This was one of the more impactful 18, 3 and 9s you'll ever see. The assists, the dimes, to only 2 turnovers, which is a big thing. He's been kind of struggling with sort of those careless turnovers of late. Didn't really feel like that in this one. Everything felt really crisp for the Raptors in this game offensively. It was really sharp, really well played on offense against a good defensive team in the Celtics, who, yes, might have been going through it a little bit, but there's good defenders all over the place on that team, and the Raptors kind of weren't bothered by it. It was awesome to see. And Scottie Barnes working the elbows, working from that mid-range, it's becoming lethal. He is awesome as a mid-range scorer. He had a whole bunch of them fall in this game, and you're seeing the playmaking that's now coming out of that, where teams are worried about the mid-range, and so there's passing to be done out of those spots, not to mention all the other passes he's throwing. There were a few in this game. I think there was one that ended up going to the corner, maybe Chris Boucher, and he missed a shot, but he might have gotten fouled or something like that. I can't exactly recall how it all transpired. They didn't get a bucket out of it, but just like really disgusting cross court, like almost no look passes. And obviously the highlight pass for him in this game was the ABA style drive along the baseline, jumps in the air and whips it behind the back, bounce pass to Jakob Poeltl, who puts the floater up and in off the glass. That's really cool stuff. This was a great Scottie Barnes game. The numbers don't necessarily show it box score wise. This was Scottie Barnes driving, winning basketball just by being on the floor, being an all-encompassing presence. This is the stuff we saw in that 10-game stretch or 11-game stretch, whatever it was, between his first injury and his second injury this season, where the Raptors went 5-5, and Scottie Barnes was very much doing the thing that you want superstars to do, which is drive winning basketball. No matter what the numbers are, no matter what the performance is, if you're on the floor, your team's winning minutes. And, it's still not been the sort of full season story for him. They're still not performing on offense particularly well when Scottie's on the floor. The overall on-offs still don't paint him as a guy who's always driving winning basketball. But in his best stretches this year, that's absolutely been true. And in the last couple of games, he has been absolutely the driver of the best Raptors minutes against the Warriors and the Celtics. Hopefully he can build upon that. Really, really good stuff from Scottie in this game. Really impressive. And look, some high comedy from Scottie as well that we must remark upon. It's okay because they won by 13. You have the, this might be my favorite play of the season I think it was the third quarter, where Scottie's guarding Jason Tatum and like clapping in his face and then instantly allows a blow by. And then Jason Tatum gets stuffed by the rim, like the rim were Dikembe Mutombo in his prime. Really fun stuff. Really enjoyed that. I'm going to be thinking about Jason Tatum getting stuffed at the rim for a very long time, because that ruled, especially after Scottie doing the high comedy of allowing the blow by after the face claps. And then at the end of the game, maybe the funniest turnover. I mentioned the 2 turnovers he had. One of them was just high comedy, where he's going nuts. He's getting the crowd jacked. He's super excited. And then they're just dribbling out the clock and he like kicks it out of bounds. And there's a quick turnover with like 4 seconds left. Also awesome. Love that from Scottie. Love the energy. Love getting people hyped. Love feeling the joy and the juice after a big win over the Celtics. Yes, they're 10-31. Yeah, maybe celebrating that kind of win is, corny or whatever in some corners. I don't know, man. If you can't enjoy beating the Boston Celtics at home, I think you need to sort of check your pulse and maybe get a new hobby. And I think Scottie Barnes, an appropriate reaction, even if there was really funny hijinks that ensued. Great stuff from him. Jakob Poeltl, can't say enough about him in this game. 8 of 8. For some reason, he just seems to have Kristaps Porzingis' number, going even back to last year. just kind of cooked Porzingis. And, he's got that sort of thing that's been added to his game, I think, more this year than years past, where he'll just kind of put it on the deck from around the free throw line area and be able to blow by a guy and score. He's, obviously a very nice connective pick and roll guy and all of that, and I think the defense for him in this game was really good. The Raptors held the Celtics to just 60% at the rim in this game, a very good number. And overall, the defense in this game, just to go back to that and how connected it was, how locked in they were. The Raptors hold the Celtics in this game to a 102.1 offensive rating. And in the half court, they hold them to an 89.8 offensive rating. Really excellent stuff. While the Raptors go and score 110.8 points per 100 possessions in the half court. Just half court dominance from the Raptors in this one. And again, this is not a game the Celtics just handed to them. The Celtics played their game. They got 46 threes up. They hit 16 of them, 35%. That's not some sort of crazy variance game where they go 20% and the Raptors win because of that. No, the Raptors just played better than the Celtics, which is a really beautiful thing. The fully healthy Celtics, by the way, with their full complement of starters, like the defending champions, again, they weren't at their A game. You're going to hit teams in the middle of lulls at various times throughout the season. You're not always going to get the best teams playing at their very best. But to beat the Celtics as comfortably as it did last night, where after sort of like the middle part of the third quarter, it never really felt like it was in doubt. Very cool stuff. And like great reps and great, sort of experience to close out the Celtics too, right? A very strong fourth quarter again for the Raptors, a team that's really struggled in the clutch. We talked about it on yesterday's show, but for them to go out and close this thing down in the fourth and not really ever waver, it was really impressive. Win of the season for the Raptors, I think, so far, you'd have to say. Maybe not the drama of the Vince Carter game and the retirement night and all of that against the Kings very early on. But as far as quality of opponent and quality of performance against said opponent, I think this goes down as the best win of the season. Very cool stuff. We're going to come back on the other side, talk about RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick more specifically. Both guys who have really struggled of late, who found their groove again last night. We'll get into why that was and why it's really important for those two guys to be humming along as we trudge forward here in the middle part of the season. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel app is super easy to navigate with a variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking at some extra weekend excitement for the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. I know a lot of folks who listen to this show are probably Buffalo Bills fans. Maybe you're nervous about the game this weekend. They're taking on the Ravens, right? I'm a big proponent of the happiness hedge. If you're going to throw some money down on sports, do it in a way that if your team loses, you at least get something out of it. Maybe throw some money on the Ravens to win if you're a Bills fan. And then if the Ravens lose and the Bills win and you lose your bet, you're still very happy. Happiness hedge, baby. Go do it. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today to get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by Skims. Yes, we're going to talk about Sean's underwear here on the podcast. I'm someone who likes soft underwear. I'm very particular about my underwear. I need a certain fit. I need those nice soft briefs, and I like a little bit of length too. I don't like stuff bunching up. I just want some length. I want to feel like I'm secure in my underwear. And Skims, man, oh man, they rule. I am a big fan. I got a couple of pairs that they sent me. I tried to give one to my wife. They didn't quite fit on her, and so I was like, all right, great. I'm gonna go and use these myself. Let's go. So now I have two pairs. It's fantastic. I'm having a great time rocking the Skims, and I really recommend you check them out. They're super comfortable. I wear them when I play basketball a lot of the time. They're a great underlayer if you don't want to wear the full tights. If you just want to wear, some nice briefs underneath, the Skims are awesome for that, and they are super light. You barely even know they're there. That's the best part. The best, your underwear is good when you forget that it exists. That is the Skims promise, or at least my promise to you, considering my personal experience wearing Skims. Go check out their men's line. You can shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedInNBA and at Skims stores as well. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Go check out Skims right now and check out their full lineup of wonderful new menswear, which are fantastic. Skims, go check them out. Back at it here on your Thursday edition of the show. Coming at you a little later than usual. Apologies for that. I had many blogs to write this morning. So, yeah, you have that to look forward to on Friday. I'm going to have a thing on Jamal Shed that I've been working on throughout the week. Looking forward to that on sort of his shooting and the mechanical changes that might be going on there with his stroke. That's something to go and subscribe to the newsletter for, baby. Also have something today out on RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick, which we're going to talk about right now. RJ Barrett, Gradey Dick, it's been a rough go for these guys over the last month or so. If you go and look at their sort of shooting charts and their overall numbers since sort of mid-December, kind of December 15th is sort of the cutoff I had. 14 games the Raptors have played since then. And it's been pretty ugly, or at least was pretty ugly going into last night against the Celtics. For Gradey Dick, shooting 49% at the rim between December 15th and the start of last night's game. 0th percentile among players in his player archetype on cleaning the glass. RJ Barrett, not much better. And of course, the rim and the efficiency at the rim, where he was north of 70% as a Raptor last year, is really what saw him take off. And for the previous month, going into last night's game, 55% at the rim for RJ Barrett. The touch on those little push shots had been off. And I think the passing had kind of regressed as well. There were a lot of really kind of errant turnovers, not quite finding the seams he was finding earlier in the season, didn't quite feel comfortable in those playmaking situations. And the overall efficiency just kind of not there for RJ Barrett over the last month or so. He was pretty good in the Cavs game last week, but a lot of kind of ugly lines for him of late. Obviously, he was sick. That's a big part of what's been plaguing him as well here. But overall, I think you got to be pretty happy with the performances you got from RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick, who, as the Raptors over the last week have kind of rounded back into form that they found in the early season. The two missing components of that early season run, where they looked very competitive and very fun, were Gradey Dick and RJ Barrett being awesome and driving offensive production for this team. Last night they did that. Last night they very much got back to sort of what those guys are supposed to be within the construct of this team. RJ Barrett, I thought, was awesome. 22 points, 11 boards, 8 assists, a steal, a block. One of his better defensive games, I'd argue. Like, very nice to see. Can it be sustainable? We'll see. But I do think he was pretty good, against a tough team to guard, right? There's no real guys you can really easily check. Drew Holiday kind of got a couple of easy buckets on him here and there. But for the most part, I thought a pretty solid defensive effort from RJ Barrett, specifically in on-ball defense. And I think, the three-point shot wasn't there, 1 of 5. That's a big concern over the last month in that sort of span I talked about, December 15th to the start of last night's game. RJ Barrett, just 26.9% on basically exclusively wide open catch and shoot looks. He's taken 1 pull-up in that time. It's been all created for him on those wide open looks, and he has been kind of bricky over the last month or so. That's going to have to come back. He can't go 1 of 5 every night. But beyond that, he goes 9 of 13 from 2-point range and was kind of just doing his typical barreling towards the rim thing on offense in this game. And it was great to see. There were a couple of possessions. There was one in particular. Scottie Barnes has it like pretty high up the floor. They run a little action to get Barrett coming around a screen. And it was just like picturesque RJ Barrett of the last calendar year for the most part, catching it on the fly, turning the corner, getting to the left and finishing. Like, it's exactly the RJ Barrett that we've grown to know and love, this sort of barreling downhill force who is impossible to stop at the rim once he gets ahead of steam. And again, it's one game. We got to see it sustained for longer, but this was a great get-well game for RJ Barrett after a pretty rough stretch of performances for him. And then Gradey Dick, I thought very much the same. Gradey has been, it's been a strange month or so, right? He's kind of had the hamstring thing he's been dealing with, and he, had some, he's just had the sort of rigors of the NBA seemingly catch up to him. They've talked about this. Darko Rajakovic earlier this week talked about, kind of the benchings he's had in crunch time and the mistakes he's made and having to learn from them and all this stuff. Like, it's been a tough go here for Gradey Dick as the sort of early season surge for him has fallen off, and the sort of, he was at the very early part of the year, like very clearly the guy who drove offense most for the Raptors. When he was on the floor, the offense was way, way better. Those sort of impact metrics have come down a little bit over the last little while. The 3-point shot's not quite falling the way that you'd want it to. And, it's been a struggle, right? The defensive stuff, like, that's standing out more. And this is the case for RJ Barrett as well. The defensive issues stand out way more when they're not producing on the offensive end they were early in the season. You can live with those guys being porous on defense to a degree, if they're driving offensive performance and helping you outscore your defensive problems. I don't care if you win minutes by having a good defense or a good offense, just win your minutes. I think the starters with those two guys in there are capable of doing that, but they got to score. And those two guys on offense have just not been providing enough to make it so they can outscore their defensive issues. And that's when you get to all these questions about the long-term fit and who should be starting and should Ochai be in there for one of Gradey or RJ Barrett. I thought Gradey in this game, this was the idealized version of Gradey Dick within this Toronto Raptors team. Not a crazy high usage game, just 9 shots. You have two of 6 from downtown, nothing crazy, but 12 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. I thought some pretty good defense. Darko Rajakovic talked about after the game that Gradey was kind of gloating looking at the box score and look at Derek White's shooting line. It was 2 of 9. I was guarding get Derek White. Did you see that? Which is great to see. You know, be proud of what you've done, even though Derek White, I think, just kind of was terrible regardless of who was guarding him in this game. But overall, like this again, this was what Gradey Dick's sort of lot within this team could look like, where even if he's not putting up 20 shots like he was earlier in the season, he is just a lubricant for everything that goes on within the offense. And the secondary creativity he has getting downhill really on display in this game. He had 4 assists. All of them were kind of dimes. And it was kind of awesome. Through some really beautiful passes in traffic, using that pump fake on the sort of panic closeouts, getting around the closeout, getting downhill, and then using his really nice feel and vision to create good looks for others. You know, he got to the mid-range game a little bit too. This was a great Gradey Dick sort of bounce back game, even with the numbers weren't amazing. If he's going to do that every single night, that's a really nice 5th starter to have, especially considering he did not get completely blown by on defense. It was really great. Happy to see Gradey kind of bounce back. And Gradey and RJ, like these two guys, they're probably going to be under the most scrutiny of anyone on the team over the next little while. Examining the fit of this starting lineup and the sort of core players on this team kind of starts with those two. Can you live with guys with those defensive issues at the 2 and 3? It currently suggests, the numbers do right now, that you can't. I still think there's a lot more offensive upside to tap into there and a little bit of defensive improvement to be had to kind of even things out a little bit. We'll see how much they can do that. But if they're going to play like they did last night, like there is an avenue to those two guys being part of a positive starting lineup when this team is fully healthy. Really encouraging stuff. Great to see them get well against the Celtics of all teams, a team that's kind of designed to ruin their lives and has very much done so in the past. We'll come back on the other side, get into the good, the bad, and the thing I liked, thing I didn't like, thing that was a little intriguing from the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game. I'm going to give some flowers to Davion Mitchell, which is not a thing I've done much this year. I've not quite enjoyed the Davion Mitchell experience, but this just might have been his best game as a Raptor. We'll get into why that was coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY in your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account. Interest rate claim is based on data from FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Back at it here on your Thursday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking about the game against the Boston Celtics that we're still basking in the glow of 1 day later. We get to the good, the bad, and the now. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and this got me a little bit intrigued about the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game. The way we wrap up every single episode of this here podcast after the Raptors go and play themselves 48 minutes of hoop. The good for me, we're going to give it to Davion Mitchell in this one. Davion Mitchell was really damn good in his minutes. I have been, not the greatest enthusiast of the Davion Mitchell experience this season. I think his offensive lack of contribution is pretty dire and really kind of limits and hampers the lineups he's out there. But on those nights where the threes are falling and he's just kind of doing a little bit, just to scrape by just enough on offense, He gives them a really nice defensive element. And I thought he was awesome in this game. 10 points, 4 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, a plus 16 to lead the team. Really, really good stuff. As much as you could have asked for from him filling in for Emmanuel quickly. That's the trade-off, right? Quickly brings you like legitimate high upside offense because of his pull-up shooting and his creation. Davion Mitchell, not doing much of that, but the defense is very real. And in a game where he was asked to guard a whole lot of Jaylen Brown and a whole lot of Derek White and a whole lot of Drew Holiday, he did himself a damn good job. So kudos to Davion Mitchell. I don't think this really changes much about sort of my views on Mitchell as like a longer term piece of the team. One game does not a player make. And I do think that moving him by the deadline because he's expiring and probably not part of the long-term plans is probably the move here still. But certainly if he's going to contribute like this and give you some nice minutes off the bench or in spot start minutes when Quickly's not available, you could do a whole lot worse than that performance from Davion Mitchell. If you can string more of those together, that's the Davion Mitchell you get every single night. That's a real like NBA player for sure. But the offense has to be a little bit better night to night for the defense to really look. There's a lot of really good defensive players, like excellent, elite, all-time defensive players who just couldn't stay on the floor on offense. Matisse Thybulle made an all-NBA team. He's barely in a rotation anymore, or on all defense team, that is. Like, it's just really hard to make it work if you don't have offensive punch. He brought just enough offensive punch in this game to Davion Mitchell to make it all work. Really good from him. I do think it's probably his best overall game as a Toronto Raptor when you factor in the two-way element. The bad for me, I don't know what the hell's going on with Bruce Brown, man. He was weird in this game. He ended up being a plus. He had like a couple of nice moments. He was good on the glass. I think he's actually been, the one thing he's really brought to the table is he's been a pretty good defender since he got back from injury, but the offense just ain't there right now. He goes 0 of 2 from downtown, 3 of 9 overall. And he does not at all pass the I think it's going in test right now. There's certain guys when the shot goes up, like Scottie Barnes takes a mid-ranger, I think it's going in. Gradey Dick takes a corner three, I think it's going in. Jakob Poeltl takes a push shot, I think it's going in. Bruce Brown takes any shot inside 10 feet, I don't think it's going in. Even he had a pick and roll situation last night. I think he was working with Scottie. He gets, a beautiful wide open pass, total lane to the rim, goes up and scores. But for a brief second, I thought he's going to brick this, isn't he? He also had a pretty rough 4-point play foul on Peyton Pritchard in the corner late in the quarter. Might have been late in the first half. That wasn't great. But yeah, all told, like Bruce Brown is sort of the one guy who stands out when you look at the performances in this one. It was a good bench game. You didn't get Chris Boucher going off for 15 points in a quarter or anything like that, but he was effective. He was a plus 13. He had 9 rebounds. Didn't shoot well. It was 2 of 7, only 1 of 4 from 3, but he found ways to contribute. I thought Kelly Olynyk was pretty effective in his minutes. 7, 3, and 4, a plus 6 himself. Didn't get embarrassed on defense, which is kind of the bar we're looking for with Kelly Olynyk these days. Jamal Shed, I'm way in on Jamal Shed. Again, I have some words coming on him tomorrow in the newsletter. You should check out. Really big believer in what Shed's been cooking up, but yeah, hard to find any negative from the bench. Even Jamison Battle, he barely played. He played 4 minutes, missed his shots, but he was fine in his minutes, didn't get run off the floor or anything like that. The one sort of downside from the bench is Ochai Agbaji getting hurt and sort of your bonus bad. He cut open his finger. I guess he reopened an already existing wound and then was bleeding all over the place. And this was after Scottie Barnes kind of hit him on the fingertip with a laser pass, and then Ochai kind of fell down. Hopefully is all right. Hopefully it's something that can kind of heal up quick. Ochai is obviously a very important bench piece for this team, spot starter, all of that. And you hope it's not something that's going to be like an irritating thing that keeps on opening up. But yeah, overall, really nice stuff from the bench in this one. The one exception being most of what Bruce Brown did, though there were a couple of moments of, oh, that's okay. And to close things out, we're at the halfway point of the season. They're 10-31 at the halfway point of the season. If you had sort of gone through all of the range of outcomes for how the first 41 games were going to go, I know the schedule was difficult. I know they had said from the start they were a rebuilding team. They weren't really trying to go and optimize wins. 10 wins in 31 feels like really near the bottom of the sort of range of outcomes here. I think the possibilities for this team probably range from what they are now to a team that's on pace for mid-30s wins and kind of in the play-in conversation and looks pretty, positive, and there's some really encouraging signs. It's been a strange half of a year, very disjointed, very, just sort of clouded in injury and sort of strange lineups and small sample data and all of this stuff. Fascinated to see what the second half holds, honestly. Like right now, they have the fourth best lottery odds. They have a 48.1% chance to pick in the top four, 12.5% chance at number one. If you're one of the bottom three teams, you get that 14% chance at number one. So 12.5, 14, really. We're splitting hairs here. I'm certainly not going to sit here and complain about the team picking up wins, especially considering that they're like hard earned and certainly overdue and like good for the soul, man. Like beating the Celtics, beating the Warriors on Monday, wins like that, where guys feel like they're getting right, proper development's happening, like things are falling into place. These are wins that are good. Darko Rajakovic talked about it after the game. RJ Barrett bristled at a question about, sort of what's the value of winning when you're in a rebuild. And, he was like, well, winning is what it's about. It is what it's about. The coaches and players ain't going to tank this thing away. As much as everyone wants to say anything that goes wrong with a player, with a coaching decision is like a stealth tank move. That's not how this works. The front office sets the sort of plans, the directive when it comes to, are we going to be good or bad? They've built a roster that doesn't have much injury insulation that's caused them to be pretty bad. Really fascinated to see how they handle the back part of this season because they're sitting there in a really good lottery spot. The lowest they can probably fall is 7th, maybe 8th if the Sixers decide to pull the chute. No idea what the hell the Sixers are going to do. They're a disaster. But you have like the sort of the bottom morass of teams that stinks. It's the Wizards, it's the Jazz, it's the Pelicans, it's the Raptors. Am I missing the Hornets? Like those are your bottom 5. Then you have the Blazers and you have the who is the other team? Forgive me. I had it in my head. Brooklyn's the other team. They lost by like 60 points last night. They're trying to lose games. They're trying to fall down the standings. It feels like falling any lower than 7th or 8th is going to be pretty tough. And I think they'll be in a good lottery position anyway. Obviously you get a better chance at a higher pick if you're higher up, but I just think if the team is playing well and they're winning some games, you let it ride here for a little bit. Maybe you do a stealth tank in the last couple of weeks of the season like many teams do, but for now, I'm not getting in the way of them going and winning these games. And it's really nice to see. I think it's good for just sort of the collective spirit of the team to win them. And then, hopefully, that they end up somewhere reasonable in the lottery anyway. Like a couple wins now are not going to hurt their lottery standings, I guess is what I'm saying. If you're one of those tank alarmists out there, fascinating to see how they're going to handle the last 20 games against a really easy schedule and a bunch of bad teams that are going to be trying to tank real hard. Do the Raptors try to match that? Do they just go out and try to win? This is a team that in the past has not really been super pro tank, outside of the Tampa year, I guess. And last year it was kind of thrust upon them with the injuries to Scottie and Yak. Fascinating to kind of see how they're going to handle this thing. I have no idea. Ultimately, control what you can control. And you can't really control the lottery odds. And, even though you give yourself a certain amount of chance, like it's one lottery. It's not like a full season of lotteries where will sort of adjust over the course of time. You're not going to run 100 lotteries and win it 48 times or whatever it is, or jump in the top 4 48 times. It's something where, it happens one time. There's variance to a single time with all probabilities. And so to me, it's so out of your control. So you're not going to sort of throw away your entire season when good things are finally happening to give yourself a couple extra percentage chance points of winning the one time they run the lottery. So just kind of let us see where it falls. They're going to be fine in the tank department anyway. They're 10-31. They're not going to go and do a Miami Heat second half 30-11 thing or anything like that. You can rest easy there, I'm pretty sure. Just enjoy what they're doing. Watch some fun basketball. Watch some competent basketball where development's happening. And we'll see where the second half takes us. But we're halfway through, man. It's kind of crazy. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we will do Toxic Positivity Friday with Katie Heindel, where we will talk about our favorite things from the first half of the season. Pulling all the good stuff from a 10-31 start. We'll have that to look forward to. Looking forward to get that out for you. In the meantime, please follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, support the newsletter, go to the Discord, all the good stuff. We will talk to you again on Friday. Another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Oh, not even close.